Hello, how are you? We are the first team that's made up of Hernandez Garcia, Wendy Valeria, Hernandez Garcia Estivalis, López Rueda Melina, and Tapia Sanchez Ingrid. A student from the Autonomous University, we will give a short explanation of the first three stems regarding the graphic model used in the linear programming. We will give a little review of what the linear programming is for those who are watching the video and have zero knowledge of the subject.
Linear programming is the name given to the calculation of the best solution to a problem model as a set of linear relationships. These problems arise in many disciplines of science and engineering.
Now, with the help of the following example, we are going to explain in detail the graphical method, how to locate the decision variables, the objective function and restriction. But first, we will give you the meaning of the what we will locate to ensure its better understanding.
Decision variables. Similar to the relationship that exists between specific objectives and general objectives. The decision variables behave with respect to the objective function. Scientists are identified based on a series of questions derived from the fundamental question. The decision variables are in theory controllable factors of the system that is being modeled, and as such, this can take various possible values of which it is necessary to know their optimal value, which contributes to the achievement of the objective of the general function of the problem.
After knowing what a decision variable is, we will analyze the following problem in order to identify the necessary variables. The really big choice is a manufacturer of athletic choice for basketball and soccer. Marketing manager Sullivan has to decide how best to spend advertising resources. Each of the sponsored soccer team requires 120 pairs of shorts. Each basketball team requires 32 pairs of shorts. Soccer coach received 300,000 in choice sponsorship and basketball coach received $1 million. Swimmer budget for promotional is 30 million. The really big choice is a limited supply, 14 liters or 4,000 cubic centimeters of flour, a rare and expensive compound used in the manufacture of promotional athletic shoes. Each pair of basketball shoes requires 30 of flour and each pair of soccer shoes requires 1. Subban wants to sponsor as many basketball and soccer teams as his resources allow.
One of the main factors is analyzed very well in order to understand the problem. What do you think the decision variables are? If you choose X number of soccer teams to sponsor, Y number of basketball teams to sponsors, you are correct. If not, we invite you to analyze the problem again, but remember while you are learning, you are not failing.
Now, we will explain why those are the decision variables in case your answer was wrong, so that you have a better understanding of the problem. What the problem wants to solve is to sponsor the largest number of basketball and soccer teams that its resources allow. taking into account the number of pairs that each team needs and knowing what sources we have available. The main thing is to identify how many soccer teams and basketball can be sponsored. Therefore, the decision variables are number of soccer teams to sponsor and number of basketball teams to sponsor. The data that is unknown is the data that you want to search.
Note that the decision variables are identified. The next step in a graphical method is to identify the objective function, and for this we will explain what it is. The objective function is closely related to the general question that you want to answer. If different questions resulted in a model, the objective function will be related to the top-level question, that is, the fundamental question. Thus, for example, if in a situation you want to minimize cost, it is very likely that the highest level question is the one that relates to increase utility rather than a question that seeks to find a way to reduce cost. After the explanation, do you know what the objective function is? C equal to maximum x plus c.
We will explain with that in the objective function in case your answer was wrong, so that you have a better understanding of the problem. What is shown in the problem is to maximize the number of teams to sponsor both soccer and basketball. Therefore, we have to find the optimal point taking into account the available resource. So therefore, this is the objective function zeta equal maximize zeta more g. The next step is to identify the restriction, but first we will give you a little concept of what the restriction are when we talk about the restriction. In a linear programming problem, we refer to everything that limits the freedom of the ball that the decision variables can take. The best way to find them is to think of a hypothetical case in which we decide to give our decision variable an infinite value.
After this, the little explanation. Do you know what the restrictions are? Bootcast 300,000 x plus 1 million y less equal 30 million. Flubber 120x plus 96y less equal 4000. Non-negativity x, y greater equals 0. The first restriction comes from the bootcast where x is the bootcast able for soccer teams and is the bootcast for basketball teams, but at the same time there is a limit of 30 million to sponsor. The time interval, the pre-restriction is given by that limit decision variable. The second restriction comes from the Flubber where x we find is b multiplied the number of pairs that the soccer team needs by amount of Flubber that is needed of each pair, and we find it by doing the same product, but in the case with the basketball team. But at the same time we have a limit of 4,000 to perform all pairs, and therefore the second restriction is given. Restriction number 3 of non-negativity indicates that every restriction must be positive for to be located in the positive quadrant. If your restriction is negative, is wrong. I hope that this little explanation has helped you have a better knowledge and understand some of the concepts that we mentioned. But remember, what you are learning, you are not feeling.